Hello, everybody. Welcome into the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today, joined by my friends and co-hosts, Mehrob and Nolan. We have a lot to get into today. The NBA Finals tip off in just about half an hour. We're going to go over everything you need to know about that. The big story we've been waiting on in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers officially agrees to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll break that down, as well as a bunch of other QB battles in Indianapolis as well as in Cleveland. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, June 5th, all over the place here today. But like I was saying, we're going to get into the big story in sports here to start it off. We're going to talk a little bit about Aaron Rodgers, the one that we have been waiting on in the NFL for months at this point. This has seemed like all but a done deal since the draft, maybe even a little bit before then, that Aaron Rodgers would be the next quarterback for the Steelers. There was a lot of feet being dragged through the mud here, but now that it's official, we know his deal, $20 million for 1 year. He is going to lead the Pittsburgh Steelers to be what this season? Are they going to be mediocre? Are they going to be better? What does this do for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
It really doesn't do much. In my opinion, I still think they'll be a 9-8 team. Maybe a 10-7 team, make the playoffs and get bounced first round. If not, maybe go on to round 2 for the first time in like 6 or 7 years. Yeah, they have a solid roster. The defense is so strong. They have DK Metcalf now. That's a big addition, even though you have to get rid of your other wide receiver one at the time. But, they're still going to be mediocre. He's a great quarterback. He's a phenomenal quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks of all time. But as you saw with his time in New York, he's kind of fallen off a little bit. He's kind of declined. He's getting old. He's getting to an age where playing football is like really hurt. It's going to hurt your body if you keep playing at this point. But he's still playing it because he loves it. And, he's just not playing, his best ball. Even he's getting old. He's just getting older. That's just how it is. And, him being signed is going to be good. For the Steelers, though, they drafted Will Howard. It's going to be great for him to get some reps behind Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest of all time, build up his reputation, get him, it's going to be great to have a vet like him teaching him the ropes, helping him become the best quarterback that he can be. So it really won't do much for them, but, it's going to be good for the quarterback room, but for the team in general, probably a 9-8 or 10-7 team at best.
Yeah, no, definitely a massive signing for them, right? You bring up the depth chart that's there right now. You have your guy in Mason Rudolph, who's most likely going to be the backup, Will Howard behind him. That is a little bit of a crowded quarterback room. You bring in a guy in Aaron Rodgers who going to be 42 years old now, coming off of a season where his numbers might have looked okay. 28 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, but it was just not a good passing offense, specifically for the first half of the season with the Jets. Started to figure it out a little bit down the stretch. Mehrob, are you buying into Aaron Rodgers on this one, or is the Jets version of the Aaron Rodgers what we're going to get when he comes and plays in Pittsburgh?
This is a guy in Aaron Rodgers that I'm definitely not. I'm definitely a little bit worried about him when I first think about him. This is a guy that's definitely been on the decline for the last few years now, even going back to his days with Green Bay, those last 3 years with him. They would have good regular seasons, but even in the playoffs, what's the biggest reason you want to bring in Aaron Rodgers? What's the one thing that the Steelers need? You have a strong defense, you have a good running game, you have some wide receivers around you. The one reason why they were okay with moving on from Russell Wilson was because they needed a legit game manager, a better quarterback that's more accurate down the stretch in key situations using their experience. That's why you bring in Aaron Rodgers. That's the biggest reason. And at least last year, there are a couple points in multiple games that we saw him just flat out just look like he was missing plays. And whether you want to blame that on the offensive line, coaching, whatnot, they did fire their coach midseason. It was just a rough year for Aaron Rodgers, especially coming off of that Achilles tear 2 years ago. It's just a tough spot to be in, and I don't think it's the right move. The one good thing though for the Pittsburgh Steelers that's going to be working for them is that they have a young guy in Will Howard working behind Aaron Rodgers. And is that going to be a storyline that we see moving forward throughout the regular season? If the Steelers start struggling, do they by chance bring in a Will Howard to start in over Aaron Rodgers?
This is an interesting point there that you brought up, the Achilles injury, because I think a lot of the kind of conversation around Aaron Rodgers has gotten more with his off the field kind of issues, right? This is a Steelers organization that's had to deal with its fair share of big personalities over the year, over the tenure of head coach Mike Tomlin down there. They've been able to survive that just fine, but people are calling Rodgers things like a culture killer. And for a guy that's kind of half on the hot seat in Pittsburgh, in Mike Tomlin, bringing in a guy like this is a big risk. On the field, I still think he's got a little bit left, but it seems to be a lot of the off the field stuff, getting the coach fired, like you brought up, bringing in his pals, Alan Lazard, who was a huge negative last season for the Jets, as well as Devontae Adams, who they traded a lot of assets for. That one did not end up working out for them, as he's now crossed the country playing for the Los Angeles Rams. There are a lot of things that could go wrong here. I tend to side more with this idea that Aaron Rodgers has a little bit of life left in his arm. We saw a lot of upside down the stretch for Aaron Rodgers. We saw a little bit more of what that classic Aaron Rodgers might look like, right? We see him finding his receivers, getting rid of the ball quickly. He was the 5th fastest quarterback in the NFL for getting rid of the ball as far as how much time you're holding onto it in the pocket. He was still incredibly accurate. He didn't really lose too much of a step, at least down the stretch in the season, it looked like, when that Jets offense really did start to pick up. I think that with Aaron Rodgers, this team, you brought up the defense already, this team that consistently goes 9-8, he's the best quarterback they've had since Big Ben. Even at his state at 41 years old, people are going to talk about they want this year to be a tank job for the Steelers. They want this year to be in the trash, which is why I think a lot of Steelers fans were kind of not against Mason Rudolph being the starter, just so they could have a hard reset on the franchise. But with Aaron Rodgers here, that means they're going to try and win games. And that pairing of him and DK Metcalf should produce what is probably going to be 9-8 yet again, but the real question comes in playoffs, because they've really struggled in playoffs. If they are, let's just say, projecting outward, they finish 10-7 this season, get the 7 seed in the AFC. Does this change their trajectory in the playoffs, or is this something that is yet again another lateral move for them?
I think the Steelers team is they're always the very defensive heavy. That's what they're known for. The Steelers are a good defensive team with okay offensive weapons, and I still think even with the addition of Aaron Rodgers, their trajectory in the playoffs will still be the same unless Aaron Rodgers manages pull out some witchcraft, throw for 400 yards and both play out to in his first playoff game to get past round 1. And I mean, they're still not getting past round 2. The Steelers are just a very mediocre organization. Like, historically, they're great, obviously, but when you haven't made it past the first round since 2016, you have a bad rep. You have this team is mid, and the fans they're sick of it. And I think I'd be sick of it too. Honestly, I wouldn't want to be I wouldn't want to be a playoff team every year just to lose in the first round. And the Steelers, like I said, just haven't got past the first round. And even with Aaron Rodgers, even if he manages to throw for 400 yards in that week 1 game or that first round playoff game, they still wouldn't get past round 2. The AFC is a very good team, a very good division. The better of the AFC and NFC, you have the guys like the Bills, you have the Ravens, you have the Chiefs. I mean, those teams are all so good on the defensive side of the ball. And with the Steelers, let's say they play they're the 7th seed and they end up playing, I don't know, let's say they play the Bills in round 1. They would get absolutely manhandled. They would. The Bills are so much better than them in both sides of the ball. And then let's say they manage to beat the Bills somehow, and then they go on to round 2 and play, I don't know, the Chargers. I think the Chargers would go on to beat them anyway too. I mean, the AFC is just too tough. So even if they managed to get past round one, they still wouldn't get past round two and still be in the same spot that they have been for the past 10 years or 9, 10 years now, just stuck in the stuck in the early rounds.
Yeah, for sure. No, we've kind of moved past this point where they've gotten him, but if you were the Steelers GM here, would you have signed Aaron Rodgers, or would you have, with this cycle of mediocrity, as you put it, would you have just decided to run this season with the combo of Mason Rudolph and Will Howard and really hit that hard reset button? Is this the right decision for the Steelers organization to try at the same thing with yet another veteran quarterback, Mehrob?
I think it's a tough place to be in if you're the Steelers right now. You don't really have this. Obviously, this QB draft was not the deepest, one of the best that we've seen, but you do bring in a guy like Will Howard. We saw what Aaron Rodgers did with Jordan Love, so I think that might have played a role in it what Aaron Rodgers did with Jordan Love back in Green Bay a couple years ago, mentoring him into how Jordan Love is now. But overall, it just feels like this is one of those moves that if Aaron Rodgers starts to tank it all, starts to play mediocre, I almost said basketball, football. If he starts to play any type of mediocre style play and the Steelers start losing, I would not be shocked if Mike Tomlin pulls the plug on him early and brings in a guy like Will Howard to get some experience, some in-game experience, because you can get as much time as you want off the field. You can get mentored as much as you want off the field. But it's those moments when you're asked as a young player to come in, step up to those big moments that make you the guy that you end up being in your career. We've seen Tom Brady be that. I'm not comparing Will Howard to Tom Brady now. Do not call me crazy. But Will Howard could be one of those next big guys. And he's in a situation where if Aaron Rodgers starts falling off, he could be in a golden situation.
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying here, but this committal, this bringing in Aaron Rodgers, they had all of the time in the world to decide whether or not to bring him in. This feels to me more like you're our quarterback for a season, and we'll see what happens after that. I don't really see a world where they end up benching Aaron Rodgers unless he truly does come out and play like a hot pile of garbage. He is going to be the starting quarterback for this season. He's going to have an incredibly long leash. I don't really see Will Howard getting into it at all. He was a 6th-round quarterback pick, a guy that you kind of just took a flyer on. I know he's coming off of a national championship win, but he was already kind of an iffy quarterback prospect to me. I think putting all your hopes on a guy like that isn't really the best thing, and I just don't really see him getting on the field right now.
I mean, you're not wrong. Will Howard, he like you said, is a great quarterback in college. I mean, that's why you get drafted. You're a great quarterback in college. And, a lot of those great college quarterbacks kind of don't pan out. And I can honestly kind of see Will Howard not panning out. He's a good quarterback, but you have Ohio State. You have obviously the best receiver in the country. You have, you're going from one of the best receiving cores in the country in college football to going to honestly one of the worst college, one of the worst receiver rooms in the NFL. You don't really have a lot going on in Pittsburgh with your receiver room. You have DK Metcalf, but like really who else? You really don't have many other weapons over there. You do have Pat Fryer with your tight end position, which is gonna be a big help for him. But I still think he could pan out. I'm not sure exactly how well he'll pan out, but I mean he's got a decent room he can back up, especially if he gets if he can learn from Aaron Rodgers' teachings, he could be a great quarterback. But I don't really know if I'd wanted to be a mentor to Aaron Rodgers. Especially in the like football wise, yeah, but like off the field, probably not. But who knows? And he could be a great quarterback, but I just kind of don't see him panning out in Pittsburgh. That's just me though.
Yeah, at least not right away. But Aaron Rodgers brings in that kind of chance for the Steelers to, I guess, push back this reset another year while they still have that defensive core around. They still need to figure out what to do with TJ Watt. They still need to figure out how much longer you have a guy like Hayward playing down there in the defensive tackle position, right? It's not a easy transition to decide to start losing. And Mike Tomlin's never going to make that decision. The Steelers, as a very proud organization, are never going to make that decision. But sometimes it just feels like it's time to hang up this veil of competitiveness when clearly you're nowhere close to a Super Bowl, just flailing around until you can maybe find a way into the playoffs. And maybe it's time for them to make a move like firing Mike Tomlin if this doesn't work out. There is the chance that Aaron Rodgers comes in and returns to form, but it really doesn't feel that way. This is a move that was a necessity for the Steelers, the way that they were trying to compete this offseason, but it's about time. I think I'm never an advocate for tanking, but it's about time that they at least think about the future a little bit more, so they can avoid turning into what the Saints are right now.
1000%. I cannot agree more with that. And it just feels like a lateral move. I think you put it best when you said that. It just feels like one of those 1-year moves. And then either you go back to the draft, go back to the drawing board for drafting quarterback, or you bring in a guy like Will Howard in the following year after a year on the bench and see what happens. We'll see what Will Howard is. And there's a lot of bright spots, but yeah, it just feels like one of those moves that's just lateral move.
Yeah. But Aaron Rodgers, newest member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. What do you think? Good move, bad move for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Would you have done this if you were the Pittsburgh Steelers GM? And where does this put the Steelers next season? We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the NBA Finals tip off in just about 15 minutes, 5 minutes actually. We're going to talk all about that. Who's going to win game 1 and who has the most to gain from winning these finals on either side of the aisle? That's coming up next here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, June 5th. If you were just tuning in, Aaron Rodgers officially a Pittsburgh Steelers. About time. We waited about 2 or 3 months for when this news was pretty well known, but now it is official. Aaron Rodgers, the next quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. In this segment, we turn our attention to the world of basketball. The NBA Finals tip-off, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Oklahoma City Thunder take on Tyrese Halliburton and the Indiana Pacers, tipping off in just any minute now with the NBA. You never really know, but we're previewing game 1, a super important game for what's going on in the series. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, June 5th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the NBA Finals here. It's here, the last series of the year in the NBA. The Pacers take on the Thunder in this one. We've talked all about our predictions. I know it was a pretty split room when we had all four of us here, 2-2 on each side, but this should be a really fun game. Game 1 is maybe the most important game of this series if it's going to be a good one. It is crucial that the Pacers steal one of the first 2 games on the road, and some might even say it's a must-win game 1 for them, looking at how this series has started off. How big of a game is this for the Pacers, and do you think they're going to be able to come out and take this first one, Mehrob?
I really feel like this is, if there was a game that the Pacers needed to win, I think you said it best. This is a must-win game for these Indiana Pacers in this series. What they've done all playoffs long, they've just been a phenomenal road team all playoffs long. It feels like every game, even against the Cavs, even against the Knicks, they won either game 1 or game 2. In both those series, they won both of those games. But when we're looking at this series specifically, we not only see two teams, it feels like these are the 2 best teams in the NBA right now, but it feels like the Thunder hold all the cards right now. They hold all the advantages, not only in the betting odds, but across the board, better defense, better offense, led by a better player, better personnel all around, deeper team. Across the board, it looks like they're better. But when you look at these Indiana Pacers, their depth, their experience, that's been crucial for them throughout these playoffs, and I think personally is going to be crucial in this series. Led by a great coach, led by Tyrese Halliburton, who needs to step up and have a good, doesn't need to have a good finals, but this is his first opportunity. Neither of these teams have won an NBA championship, but when we're looking at game 1, it needs to be the guys, the starters that step up. It's going to be the star players that get it done for these guys. If we're going to look at X factors, it's probably going to come down to a guy like an Andrew Nembhard, a guy like a Jalen Williams on the Thunder side of things. And yeah, I'm rolling with the Pacers on this one.
Yeah, these 2 teams match up really well. They're both very deep teams. And like you said, game 1 is kind of a must-win situation for the Pacers. It's not to say that the series is over if they don't win game 1, but it certainly deflates a lot of the sails. And I think the storyline tomorrow, if the Thunder are to win this game, is not really that dependent on how this game goes. It's just going to be, do the Pacers really even stand a chance? You're going up against the MVP in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. These 2 teams, of course, are the best team since January 1st, the 2 best teams since this beginning of this calendar year in the entirety of the NBA, so it should be good. The Pacers 6-1 in their last 7 road games. They've had a miracle to win game 1 on the road against the Knicks, a miracle against the Bucks, and against the Cavs, all on the road there early on in the series. If they can pull another one out there, it's going to do a lot for their momentum. Nolan, what does this game look like from your perspective?
Yeah, I wouldn't really say that it's obviously, you want to win game 1. You want to have that comfort of having the first one in the series. I really think it comes down to game 2. If they go down 2-2, let's say the Thunder win tonight and then win the next game. The Pacers are down 2-0 to the best team in the NBA. At that point, I think the series is already going to be over. I think you cannot come back from that. But if the Pacers are up 2-0, the media is going to say, or like people are going to say, the Thunder could still come back and win this. So I think really game 1 is obviously important. And honestly, I think the Pacers could win. Obviously, you're looking at the roads, like you just said, 6-1 in the playoffs so far on the road. That's huge. Winning playoff games not in your home arena where you're the underdog and you're winning those games. It just shows you how good of a team they are, not only away, but it shows you how good they've been playing at home as well. Because they don't lose many home games either. They've lost 2 home games as well. I mean, they're playing great. And honestly, if the Pacers can win this tonight and maybe, score away game 2, both of them in OKC, going to game 3 in Indiana, honestly could be a drastic turn in favor of Indiana. Because like I said, they've only lost about 1 or 2 games of themselves. For them, they've only lost 1 or 2 games home as well. So, I mean, they've been playing great. This is a very good Indiana team. I'm not discrediting Oklahoma City. They are obviously one of the best NBA teams not only in the league right now, but of the past 2 years. They're just phenomenal. Taking away Jokic in game 7, champ from 2 years ago. I mean, there's still, and honestly, SGA beat out Jokic in the MVP race. It's MVP beats MVP, great series to watch. But this OKC team is just so good. There's just so much talent over there. So young too. This team is so young. Obviously, their head coach, he's young. He's second-year head coach. Their SGA was drafted in 2018, traded to OKC, or 2019, traded to OKC after his rookie season. Chat was drafted only 3 years ago, but only been playing for 2. Hartenstein's playing. He's like their vet. Hartenstein's basically their vet, unless you want to call Alex Caruso their vet. But they don't really have a lot of a lot of long tenured players. I feel like the Pacers have more of that. Obviously, you have Miles Turner. He's been there his entire career. Been there for about 10 years now, and he's really looking to go kind of. He hasn't been talked about a lot in his career, and I think if he manages to play good these first 2 games in OKC, he can really solidify himself as one of the best Pacers that we've seen in a really long time.
Yeah, and I think another key to this series is going to be the turnovers in this one. Both of these teams have been really good at forcing turnovers. That's their bread and butter, both of them defensively. And both of these teams have been really good at not turning the ball over. I think that's why they have been so dominant in these playoff runs so far, both of these squads, not to mention their shooting. It's going to obviously come down to who shoots a little bit better on that defensive end. The Pacers coming in shooting 40% from 3, a ridiculous clip. And that has been a huge part of why they've been so successful going up against this Thunder defense. Are they going to be able to keep that up? Are they going to have that same kind of spacing? What's their game plan here to go up against a team defense like the Thunder, you think?
We're looking at, I think this series is going to come down to between those lines, like you said, Jeremy. I think it's going to come down to this Pacers team's offense going up against the Thunder's defense. If there is a way, this is the one thing that the Thunder haven't seen so far in these playoffs. If there is a team that can speed up or that can keep up with this Oklahoma City Thunder team, it is these Indiana Pacers. This team can not only keep up with them, they might be able to speed them up faster than they'd like to do. And that is going to be something that the Thunder are not used to doing. They're used to pushing the pace, controlling the pace, playing the game the way they like to play it. And Rick Carlisle is going to have, that's a big reason why I'm saying Rick Carlisle is going to have his experience ready to go tonight. And that young coach in OKC is going to be tested. But when we're looking at, I think that's going to be a big storyline, and vice versa as well, the way that the Thunder are going to be able to handle the Pacers defense. So both of those matchups are going to be really interesting in this series, and those are the 2 lines that this series is going to be won. Whoever can win between those 2 lines.
You bring up Rick Carlisle, and I think he's a really huge part of it. I know you talked about him as the X factor. When he was with the Mavericks, he was able to shut down LeBron James as much as you possibly can shut down LeBron James in that finals. They're going up against SGA, a guy that gets to the rim like nobody that I have ever seen. The Pacers' rim protection isn't necessarily their strong suit. They need to find a way to keep him outside of the paint if at all possible. If they're able to do that, and I trust Carlisle to be able to make some kind of game plan there, it's going to be a lot easier for the Pacers to do. You talk about their speed. That is their game. They're probably the fastest team in the NBA. For as fast as the Thunder are, they don't hold a candle to the way that the Pacers like to play. It's up and down the court at all times. You cannot get a single rest. The good news is the counter to that is depth, and both of these teams have depth. In this all-important game 1, I think coming out of this, the Pacers just surprise them with their speed and how they play the game. It's been like that for each of the first 3 series that they've done. None of these teams have been ready for the blitzkrieg that this Pacers team has been able to bring. And because of that, I think they come out of the gate strong and make this thing a bit of a series. I'm taking the Pacers in game 1.
That's what I got too. Pacers game 1. I think this is a must win for them. I would say, like I said, it wasn't a must win. I think game 2 is obviously more important. But if they win game 1, getting that game 2 win will just add the icing to the cake. So yeah, I also have Pacers in 1. Huge win for them if they do manage to get a win in the OKC in game 1. Kind of maybe flip the momentum a little bit, because obviously in OKC, one of the hardest environments to play in the NBA. I'm watching it right now. They all got the fans got all the white shirts on. I mean, it's the white out there. And it's going to be a tough environment. The Pacers, if they can, come in tonight, come to OKC, get a win on OKC's turf, they can kind of, maybe show these OKC fans that they're not just an absolute powerhouse that like they think they are. They can be stopped, and Pacers can honestly probably do that tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Mehrob.
There's only one team in these playoffs so far that has actually taken the Thunder to a decent series. I mean, we know the Timberwolves did, but it was the Denver Nuggets. And what did they do in that series? They won game one. And I think it's going to be one of those same, it's going to be it's going to be an exact replica of that. I think the Pacers are going to come out, take game one. I think if the Pacers can hang around, make it around 7 points, keep the deficit short, and bring it late game, I think they hold all the cards. And I think they got tested. They got a big test last game in Game 5. Yeah, against the New York Knicks with Jalen Brunson, with the way that Andrew Nembhard was guarding Jalen Brunson. I think they're going to do a similar game plan to that against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in this series.
Yep, that's going to be a huge part of it. But game has officially tipped off. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, who is going to benefit the most, legacy-wise or just the future-wise, when we talk about who's going to win this NBA championship? We'll have that discussion coming up next here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, June 5th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished previewing Game 1 of the NBA Finals between the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. That game has tipped off 7-1 right now in favor of the Oklahoma City Thunder, about 3 minutes into regulation. In this segment, we continue our talk about this NBA Finals. There are a lot of guys that can benefit hugely in their legacy from winning an NBA Finals, but there's a couple of them that stand head and shoulders above the rest. We'll break down each and every one here in just a second, but before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, June 5th. But like I was saying, we are going to get here into who benefits the most from these NBA Finals, a NBA Finals victory here. And we'll start off on the Pacers side of things. There's a couple guys that I have singled out here, and we'll go over who I think is probably the 2 or 3 guys that it helps the most. It's going to be starting off with maybe the more obvious one, Tyrese Halliburton here. He wins this finals. The big question on my mind is he the greatest Pacer of all time for winning a finals year? He's now led the Pacers to 2 straight Eastern Conference Finals. He's led them to a finals appearance. If they are to win one, it would be their first ever championship. He has to go up against a lot of all-time greats, right? You got Paul George over there. Obviously, you've got a couple of other huge names over there that are a little bit higher up on the list, at least right now. But if he wins this series, does Tyrese Halliburton become the greatest Pacer to ever play in that historic franchise?
I think he could be 100%. I think what he has already done, going to 2 straight Eastern Conference Finals appearances, is honestly probably more than what Paul George ever did for the Pacers, and you could maybe say what Reggie Miller did. Even Reggie Miller did go to the finals, but I don't think he went back-to-back ECFs. I think if they managed to obviously get the first ever championship this year against the MVP in SGA and the Oklahoma City Thunder, I think he could easily be, talked about as the best Pacer of all time. Obviously winning your first championship is going to put you in that discussion. And I think if he manages to win finals MVP and win the finals, I think he 100% will be the greatest Pacer of all time. But you have to obviously win the finals first to get that. I think if he manages to win the finals here, I think he could easily be – he's already top 3 in my opinion. I think he already is a top 3 Pacer of all time just for what he's done already. But if he manages to win the final, I think he could easily be talked about as the greatest Pacer of all time.
Yeah, the way I look at this one, I don't know if I can put him above Reggie Miller, but when we're talking about Tyrese Halliburton and the effect that he would have in Indiana if he brought the Indiana Pacers their first NBA championship in franchise history, in a way, as great as it would be, I don't know if it can trump something like a Reggie Miller, a guy like a Reggie Miller, a guy that's renowned as one of the best scorers in NBA history that's done it for so long. I think he would be known as one of the fan favorites and obviously bringing their first championship. It would be similar. I'm a Celtics fan. The way I think about it, it would be similar to the way that Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce brought a championship to Boston for the first time in 30 years when they won in 2010. In a similar fashion to that, I think. So, absolutely, Tyrese Halliburton has a lot to gain from these finals. I think also another guy on the Pacers, Pascal Siakam, could get a bunch from it, winning his second NBA championship, just winning Eastern Conference Finals MVP. He could get a lot out of it, but yeah, I think he would be the second greatest Pacer of all time if he won it.
Yeah, and Pascal Siakam is that next guy. It would be a really tight race between Halliburton and Reggie Miller, like you said. I think there would be real long, hard discussions. If it ended today, I still side with you, even with a finals victory, goes to Reggie Miller there. But you give it a couple more years, you make a couple more deep runs in the playoffs, there's a real chance that 5 years from now we have a new great Pacer of all time in Tyrese Halliburton, especially if he just continues to improve and be a playoff riser like he has been. But you bring up Pascal Siakam. He has a chance here now for a second ring. Obviously won one as kind of that number 2-ish option on the Raptors with Kawhi Leonard back in 2019. He now gets his second ring. You talk about being the most valuable player in the Eastern Conference Finals. Does he lock himself in as a Hall of Famer with a second ring, a basketball Hall of Famer? Because that's the kind of stuff we're talking about with the career accomplishments of a Pascal Siakam if he wins yet another title this season.
Hall of Famer. That's a good one because obviously, winning a conference finals MVP is going to help you boost that legacy. 2 NBA championships, that's going to help. I think if he could manage to win NBA finals MVP, I think that could definitely maybe boost his potential, but I don't think he will. I just don't think he doesn't have enough accolades for people to kind of understand how good of a player he really is. I think people kind of base a lot of like Hall of Fame inductees on accolades, and people who haven't really known they didn't really know how good he was on that 2019 Pacers team. He could be, he was the second option to Kawhi, maybe a third. Fred VanVleet can, flip flop, but I mean, he was so good. He was averaging in that playoff room, I believe, 20 points a game, averaging like a few assists and a few rebounds. I mean, he was a great player in that Raptors team, and people really, I mean, obviously he's in the shadow behind Kawhi Leonard, who had possibly one of the greatest, playoff runs of all time with that Raptors squad. But if he can somehow manage to win, Finals MVP, he has a closer chance. But like I said, I just don't think he will, just due to the fact that he doesn't have a lot of accolades, and he doesn't really like a standout guy. You're not gonna think all-time player for the Raptors and think Pascal Siakam. You're just not gonna be like that. So he's a great player. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think he will make the Hall of Fame, even if he manages to win the Finals and Finals MVP.
I really think, not to contradict what you just said, Nolan, but I really think Pascal Siakam was such an underrated player with that Raptors team. A lot of people, like at least for me, some people were saying he should have been the Finals MVP of that series. Even though a lot of people, you can't, Kawhi Leonard, it's hard to discount Kawhi Leonard. But when you look at that addition that the Pacers made, bringing in Pascal Siakam 2 years ago, it was really sneaky. A lot of people said, oh, he's one of those guys that's just going to be one of those one and done guys. They're just bringing him in as just a 1 year piece that they're going to move as a package deal. And he's really found a home with these Pacers. The way he gels with Tyrese Halliburton, the way he's keep taking some of that load off of Miles Turner, giving him more of that center position instead of putting him at that power forward spot that he doesn't like to be in. He's just been a great addition for these Pacers, and if he wins that second championship, he would be as a number 2 option. He could go down as one of the better number 2 options in NBA history. I think he really could. I'm not saying he's Scottie Pippen, but he's up there with one of those good guys, one of those greats out there as a number 2 option.
There's no doubt about it. He is one of the more underrated players in all of NBA history. That Raptors team was stacked. Oh my God. You still had a really good Kyle Lowry still kind of in his prime there. Fred VanVleet coming off the bench. I'm going to miss a bunch of people. OG Anunoby was hurt during that run too. If he was out there, that team would have been even better. That team was absolutely stacked, and Pascal Siakam still found a way to stand out in a lot of those ways. And he isn't like that super sexy number 2 option. He isn't your Scottie Pippen. He isn't your Dwayne Wade with LeBron James on the Heat. These guys that are, superstars in their own right? But he is a star, no doubt about it. And I think if he gets, I should say, this second NBA championship ring, it cements his legacy as a Hall of Famer. Now, how high of a number 2 option is he all time? I don't know if I would go as high as talking Scottie Pippen kind of area, but he's definitely up there, right? He gets to play kind of sidekick to Kawhi Leonard, prime Kawhi Leonard, and then to this incredible run with the Pacers. He's one of the few guys on that team that really can just win an iso ball, which is so huge because the Pacers, they play a lot of share the basketball, pass the rock, but when you need a bucket, they can draw up a play for Siakam, and he can make that happen. He can gain a lot. The last guy on the Pacers that I wanted to talk about, though, is the head coach, Rick Carlisle over here. This would be his second NBA championship, his first with the Pacers. He would be one of only 4 coaches in all of the NBA history to win an NBA championship in multiple different locations, joining some pretty amazing names. He's a guy that is, again, one of the more underrated coaches of all time. He has now been a part of, especially if the Pacers are able to finish this run off, 2 of the greatest runs in playoff history, if you include the one against LeBron when he was with the Mavericks and Dirk Nowitzki. He is the architect to some of the greatest playoff runs of all time. How much higher up on the all-time coaching ladder does a second ring for Carlisle push him up in this year's NBA Finals?
how high does he go? I'm not exactly sure, honestly. There's just too many, obviously he's not getting one or two. Obviously, he'll maybe crack the top 15, maybe top 10. I mean, obviously, if he obviously the 2011 run, that is single-handedly the greatest playoff run of all time from any team. Having to go through obviously Kobe, OKC with KD, Harden, Westbrook, and then having to go through prime LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh. I mean, it's only really Dirk, and you had Jason Kidd there. But I mean, you didn't have you weren't. This ain't no super team. This ain't no big three. This is just Dirk. You just give Dirk the ball and let him work. And he let that happen. He created a whole new scheme. He managed to scheme up against some of the greatest teams ever assembled. And if he can manage to win a championship this year as well, after everyone, even me, counting out the Pacers' first run against the Bucks, he could easily be in with a second ring, of course. He could be, a top 10 coach of all time, just based off, his playoff performances in the big spotlight. Going against the best teams and beating them down, David versus Goliath kind of style. I mean, he could be talked about as one of the greatest playoff coaches of all time and one of the greatest coaches of all time. Not number two, no top 5 coach, but top 10 for sure in my opinion.
1000%. I can't agree more. I think if he could bring in a championship with that 2011 ring, the run that he's on this year, a lot of teams counting him out, a lot of people counting out the Pacers the way that they have this year, calling Tyrese Halliburton the most overrated player in the league, bringing him his first championship ring. Rick Carlisle could go crack that top 15, top 20 rank as an NBA coach all time. I really think so.
A lot of guys over here on the Pacers, but that's just only one side of the puzzle. The Thunder have a lot of big names that can benefit from winning it if they are able to, not blow this, as the Vegas odds makers are saying. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, of course, the big one that comes to mind. He, very similarly conversation to the one we had about Tyrese Halliburton, will have won an MVP. Most likely, if they win, will win MVP of the finals. That's not a guarantee, but it's the most likely option if the Thunder are going to win this. Does he enter those conversations? It's going to be a lot harder of a conversation. You're comparing it to KD and Westbrook. Does he enter the conversation as the greatest Thunder of all time? I know some people are already ready to crown him.
Go, Mehrob, you got it.
All right. When we're looking at it, I think he could get into that conversation. I think this is a similar situation to Reggie Miller and Tyrese in a way. KD's been around for a long time, and these are two guys in Tyrese Halliburton and SGA that are just getting started in the NBA. They're both just barely 20. SGA's 23, and Halliburton's around 24, 25. They're both just getting started right now. And this is these are both of their first NBA finals. And the fact that we're even talking about them in this light is crazy. When you look at SGA already winning the NBA Finals MVP, winning the regular season MVP, winning Western Conference Finals MVP, if he can find a way to win the Finals and Finals MVP, I think for sure it's pretty much undeniable that he's the best Thunder of all time, like player-wise, accolades, talent across the board. I think he would surpass KD. But even right now, I think he's probably the only players I could think of that are higher than him. Even if we count the Supersonics where the Thunder are from, he's easily just maybe already at 4. The only 3 I can think of are Sean Kemp, KD, and Russell Westbrook at being higher than him. Then that's now without even winning a finals. So the fact that he's already in that stature, I think he can absolutely climb up the ranks, but he just needs to win a title. And this is the Thunder's opportunity to do so before the Western Conference gets even more stacked than it is already.
I mean, even if he manages to win a title, I still don't think he's the greatest Thunder player of all time. I still think KD's the greatest Thunder player of all time. I think he is just too good. I mean, if you're looking strictly just on ball at OKC and not career-wise, yeah, maybe, because he has the most accolades. But if you look at how good KD was without getting any, he won his MVPs, but not, he won, obviously James Harden got his MVPs as well. Ross has a few MVP or two. He's got one from Houston. But, Like those three guys alone, those guys, I would take honestly in their primes. I'm thinking either of those three over SGA, and I feel like that's not a ridiculous take. Those three were all so good at OKC, and if any of those three were in SGA's position right now, let's say James Harden, KD, or Russ were SGA right now, they would still be in the exact same spot because those three are just as good, even better than SGA. Yeah, if he manages to win the Finals MVP and Finals, he would be the best based off accolades. But player-wise, no. I mean, if you're looking at Supersonics too, you're already looking at Ray Allen. Obviously, you said Sean Kemp. I mean, Ray Allen was literally one of the greatest, probably the greatest Supersonic of all time. And, I mean, it's just, yeah, if you're looking at accolades alone, yeah, he'll win it. But player-wise, I still don't think he's even a top 5 Thunder player of all time.
Yeah, no, it's tough. It's for such a young franchise, even if we're just talking about the Thunder and excluding the Supersonics here, it's still a really, really tough list to crack. I think he's probably top 3 already. Winning an MVP shoots you way up there. He joins KD and Westbrook as the only other 2 guys to do that in this franchise. But still, those are 2 guys that are going to be a lot to pass. You talk about what he's done this season. This season, just single season, is one, especially if he's able to finish it off with a Finals MVP in a Finals. That's a top 10 season all time. What he's done just this year is insane, and I don't think people would be crazy for calling him the greatest Thunder of all time. I, for one, would like to see him, at least sign an extension before you crown him as that. But that's more semantics of the reason James Harden isn't in this conversation is because he left, right? Or he was traded away. If he had played his whole career there, or played a lot more of his career there, he'd be in this conversation, but he's not in this conversation for me because of that. So because of that, I'd like to wait for him to sign a Supermax before I say he's the greatest Thunder of all time, but I think that's really the only thing that's, in my mind, stopping him from being that, especially if he finishes out this incredible season with what he's already done. But outside of him, there was one more guy that I think can really benefit from winning on the Thunder side of thing, and that's the GM, Sam Presti over there. How he's built this team is going to be attempted to be replicated. It's not going to happen. This is a team that was built off of incredibly savvy moves. We talked about the Paul George trade a couple days ago that helped bring in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. His ability to stockpile picks and kind of know when it is the right time to move off of assets. And he hasn't really been wrong about just about anything, right? He moved off of Chris Paul, got a good amount back for him. You move off of Russell Westbrook, you get a good amount back for him right before his career kind of fizzles out, right? You get a lot back from all of your pieces. You never really lose too much, even when superstars go away. It is a hard line to walk, and it's even harder to draft like they have been able to do. People are going to try and replicate it, but if he wins another one, he shoots to the top of GMs, at least currently, in the NBA. I think there's a discussion. There's a couple really good GMs, but this does wonders for him, and he's going to be enshrined in job security until he basically retires if they do finish this one off, in my opinion.
1,000%. I think if Sam Presti can get that championship, this would be one of the best. This is a Thunder team that's basically been built from the ground up. And not only that, they have a haul of picks in the next 4 years so they can continue to not only build but sustain what they've already built. So I think they're gonna be competitive for a long time. I'm gonna do this one time. If I am Sam Presti, if they win the championship, this is the first thing that I'm doing. I'm getting a sticky note and I'm doing this to everybody in front of the camera. Thank you, LA. Because if it was not for the Los Angeles Clippers, these Oklahoma City Thunder would not be where they are today. That SGA deal is going to go down as one of the craziest trades in NBA history, and it's all thanks to Sam Presti and what he did to bring in a guy like SGA and what he saw in him from LA.
I'm not really sure if he made that trade with SGA because he saw what he saw. I just think he saw an extra guy being added, said, yeah, sure, why not? I think what he saw was those 5 first-round picks and said, yeah, give me who else you want, and we'll take them. But, SGA just happened to turn out to be a superstar. I mean, that's just luck of the draw. I mean, obviously, he was traded after his rookie year, So, there was obviously shine. There was obviously potential to see. Clippers didn't want him. They wanted to ship him off. And you know what? They just Oklahoma City Thunder. They got lucky. I mean, that was honestly just a trade that happened to go right in the right direction for the OKC. They obviously have built him up They basically built him up from the ground up. They have turned him in to what he is now. But him getting traded to from LA was the best thing that could have happened for his career. And obviously, Paul George leaving OKC was the best thing that could have happened for them, because now SGA leaving LA is now he's blooming into one of the greatest current NBA players right now. And Paul George leaving OKC obviously helped them acquire all these trades, helping acquire all those first round picks for the years to come, because they have 10 first round picks in the next 3 or 4 seasons. I mean, they could literally draft a whole new starting 5 in the next 4 or 5 seasons, which is honestly just kind of ridiculous. So they have infinite draft stock they can just trade away for other superstars. They can honestly go get Giannis if they wanted to. They can get rid of 4 first round picks and go get Giannis right now. They don't have to, but they have so much leeway and so much power in the NBA right now, just based off draft picks alone that they have. They can create the greatest. They can create a super team, but they don't have to, because they're already in the finals, so they don't need any more, superstars. But hey, they can go get some with their 50 million draft picks. Why not?
Absolutely. Those are the guys that I think benefit the most. So those are the guys that I was pointing to. Do you guys have any other people that you think might benefit incredibly, either side, Pacers or the Thunder, that you think a title, a new ring on their finger would do wonders for their career, their legacy?
I think across the board, the 3 guys, those 3 guys in OKC right now, SGA, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren, can cement their legacies as some of the great young players in the NBA if they can get a championship. And I think they've grown together really well over these especially over the conference finals that just happened between them and the Timberwolves. They stepped up in a big way. I think if they win a championship, they can really cement themselves as at least 15 to 20-year players in the NBA.
Yeah, no, because these guys are incredibly young. You're absolutely right about that. And I'll let you go here in a second, Nolan. But they get a championship now. They've won the West 2 years in a row. They're going to get paid whenever it's time for them to come up.
This one isn't really, it's going to cement his legacy. I would have loved to see Alex Caruso get ring number 2. I think he was great with that Lakers team. I think it'd be seeing him kind of bloom into this phenomenal defender of a player. Even though he's always been a great defender, with his time in Chicago, you saw that. With his late years in LA, you saw that. But seeing him, I think he really just deserves it. I mean, he's really just kind of this guy who's been around the league since 2018, earlier than that. But I mean, he's been around, and he got that ring in LA, that 2020 ring. No one calls that a legit ring, which I still think is kind of crazy to think about. But he gets this ring number 2 as a very solid, 6th man off the bench, 7th man off the bench. I mean, that's gonna be, he's not no Hall of Famer, but you can think of Alex Caruso as part of this Thunder team. I think, think of this 2025 Thunder team. If they win the NBA Finals, I think this wouldn't be possible without Alex Caruso locking down Nikola Jokic in Game 7 of the Western Conference semifinals. But it'd just be kind of cool to see him get another ring. I think it'd be cool for his life. Just cool to see, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. But that is a lot of people that can really benefit from winning the finals here. Of course, there's a lot more. Everybody benefits from winning a finals. Everyone benefits in the organization, around the organization. But those are guys that I think really do stand out. Let me know in the comments if you guys think of anyone that we missed. Who do you think benefits the most from winning an NBA title this year? I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention back to the world of football. Some more wide receiver news. Terry McLaurin unhappy with the Washington Commanders and the state of his contract negotiation, as well as another wide receiver up in Baltimore getting himself an extension. All that and more coming up next here on GSMC's Sports Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, June 5th, if you were just tuning in. We just finished going over everything you're going to need to know about Game 1 of the NBA Finals, as well as Aaron Rodgers finding a new home, this time with the Pittsburgh Steelers. In this segment, we talk about some more drama from around the NFL, some wide receiver news. Terry McLaurin looking to be fed up. He left minicamp after a not-so-good discussion about his long-term future with the Washington Commanders, as well as an update from another wide receiver in Baltimore. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, June 5th. But like I was saying, we're going to get here into what we need to know about the wide receiver news from around the NFL. We're going to start off in our nation's capital. Terry McLaurin and the Washington Commanders are at odds. McLaurin, of course, top 10 receiver in the NFL. Maybe that's a little bit too high for him, but that's probably right around where you would put him in there, 10 to 15 range, maybe up to 8. He is a guy that with Jaden Daniels really exploded onto the scenes, at least of the national scenes. He's always been an incredible wide receiver without a great quarterback. But he's also taken a bunch of pay cuts and sacrificed a lot to stay with a franchise in Washington that was not great, to say the least, at times when he was there. He survived through that Dan Snyder era. He survived through the 2 different name changes. He is here, and if there's anybody on that team that deserves to be paid for being a leader and being the guy that has just been through the storm and through everything, it's him. And the fact that the Commanders, who seemingly have turned that franchise around, at least with its culture behind GM Adam Peters and new president and owners over there, this is something that I was not expecting. I thought they would just basically write a blank check for Terry McLaurin. I know he's a little bit older at age 30, but how do you see this turning out? We'll start with Mehrob on this one. How do you see the situation kind of playing out right now if you are Terry McLaurin and the Washington Commanders?
Yeah, it's definitely a very tough spot to be in if you're Terry McLaurin and the Washington Commanders. Terry McLaurin, obviously one of the more underrated wide receivers in the NFL, went through a lot of tough years in the nation's capital, had a lot of tough times, played with a lot of quarterbacks and under a lot of head coaches. Was there with the Ron Rivera era, if you guys remember that a couple years ago. He's been through it all. He's been through a lot of coaches, a lot of quarterbacks. But now, last year, settling down with Jaden Daniels has been a phenomenal. It's really just been a resurrection to his career. Not only has it been a good addition for Jaden Daniels, a good, solid, accurate target for Jaden Daniels to throw to, but it's also uplifted Terry McLaurin's career a little bit, brought him up into that top 10 conversation where he already deserved to be in, but put him in the spotlight, and that's exactly where he deserved to be. If you're Terry McLaurin, it's tough. If you're the Washington Commanders as a whole, it's tough because you know Jaden Daniels is going to want a contract extension soon. And if I had to guess, that's probably why they got into an argument to begin with. But Terry McLaurin's been there for years. He definitely deserves a say in the conversation, and it's definitely a tough call for him. But at the end of the time, man, if it wasn't for your quarterback, you wouldn't be where you are. But you deserve to be in the conversation. But you can play devil's advocate. There's definitely an argument for both sides of it. But it's just a tough spot to be in if you're Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just surprised they haven't re-signed. I mean, what he has done for the org, like Jeremy said, like you said, he's been around there forever. He's been around this since he gets, just for a long time, and he's seen some pretty rough eras. He's been around some pretty poor teams, some pretty poor quarterbacks, and he stuck around. He stuck with it because he saw something. He saw something happening there in Washington, and he wanted to stay. And last year, it happened. They got over the hump. They went to an NFC title. Granted, they got defeated pretty poorly to the Eagles. It was a pretty not close game. Let's just say that. But I mean, he deserves everything they're going to throw at him. Whatever money he gets, they should double it because he is just that good a receiver. Last year, obviously, I'm saying a lot because he was also on my fantasy team last year. He helped me win a fantasy championship. So obviously, I'm saying all good things about him, and hopefully, I can get it back again this year. But he was so good this year. He was your go-to guy. He was obviously their go-to receiver, and him and Jaden Daniels, that immediate connection they had when he got to minicamp last year was immediate. I mean, Daniels was obviously the second overall pick in the draft, second quarterback taken, and for a reason. He has proven himself to be the best quarterback so far from that and in my opinion, from that draft class. I think he's better than Bo Nix, which it's not crazy to say. Caleb Williams, he's only going to get better, but he's Ben Johnson now. He's going to be a great quarterback. I mean, there's obviously other quarterbacks there as well, but he, in my opinion, was the best one. He had the most success last year, and him being able to just find Terry McLaurin anywhere in the field at any time really just proves how good McLaurin is. He was doing all that. He was their number one guy, number one player on the team for years, and with horrible quarterbacks, just not good quarterbacks at all. And last year, he gets finally an elite quarterback, an elite, fast, accurate rookie quarterback, and he just absolutely dominates the spotlight. And this really just shows how good of a receiver he was. He was like that. He was just like that at Ohio State as well, and it just translated over to the NFL. He's just dominant. You want to get up, you want to throw a 50-50 ball, he's going to go up for it. He'll probably come down with it. He's just that good a receiver. And honestly, whatever money they like I said, they should throw him. Whatever they're going to throw at him, double it because that's exactly what he deserves. Even though he's getting a little older, he's still a great receiver.
Yeah, Terry McLaurin right now at age 30, basically, he'll turn 30 in week 2 of this NFL season, is making a little less than $23 million a year right now. He is a guy that deserves to be paid more. Obviously, I don't think anybody is really advocating for Terry McLaurin to be paid as the best receiver in the NFL. That would mean dishing out $40 million a year, right? That's not going to happen. He's not getting that. But to push him up into that tax bracket, that $30 million a year kind of situation, you give him a 3 or 4 year contract. Say you give him a 4-year, $30 million a year deal, 35 maybe even. You give him that kind of money, it would be right alongside a lot of the top receivers in the league. You guys bring up paying Jaden Daniels. And Jaden Daniels just finished off his rookie season. He's going to have 4 more years when you include that 5th-year option that they're inevitably going to take with him to work out a contract. So you give McLaurin a 4-year deal. That takes you through the end of it, and maybe the timing isn't necessarily what you want, but you wouldn't have to have both of those contracts on the books at the same time. If a 34-year-old Terry McLaurin isn't who you want on your team anymore, you can sign him to a cheaper contract or just let him walk after and still give that massive contract you're going to have to give to Jaden Daniels once that happens. But there's no reason not to pay Terry McLaurin what he wants, at least get him up to that $32-ish million a year. Make him make more money than Brandon Ayuk, who does not deserve $30 million a year anyway. That's a whole nother discussion. But he should get paid. If not because of how good he is, because of what he's sacrificed and what he's given in to this organization. Terry McLaurin, a very special talent, a very special player on and off the field. And I hope he gets rewarded for it by an organization that is doing their best to turn everything around. But outside of that, you go north just a couple of hours, more wide receiver news, as we have seen now. Rashad Bateman get paid. He finally had a healthy season. 3-year, $39 million deal for Rashad Bateman to stay a Baltimore Raven. He was really good when he was on the field. He just had a lot of trouble getting on the field. A really elite deep threat for Lamar Jackson and his MVP-ish season last year. A very responsible contract, I'll say. There's lots of receivers in that kind of Rashad Bateman range that were getting overpaid. I think of a guy like Darius Slayton, who got a very similar contract, a lot of money for him. Rashad Bateman is absolutely worth that kind of money as long as he can stay healthy. What do you guys think of this contract for Rashad Bateman, though?
When I take a look at Rashad Bateman, it's tough. Because when you look at the Baltimore Ravens, it always feels like their wide receiver class is always struggling a little bit. It feels like it's a step behind, but Lamar Jackson always finds a way to make it work. He finds a way to uplift it in a way. Rashad Bateman is definitely one of the younger receivers in the league, and I don't know if I'd call him the number one receiver on the team, but I'd definitely call him either number 2 or number 3 for sure. I'd definitely just put Zay Flowers over him. But when we look at Rashad Bateman, he's been on the team for a while. He's been reliable. He's taken less money to start his career. Finally gets paid a little bit. It's just going to be about how he responds. If he can keep it up, if he can keep improving a little bit and make that contract worth the money that the Ravens gave him. That's what it's going to come down to. I think he will. Obviously, when we think of the Ravens, they definitely need to win a championship, and I don't think a lot of that blame goes on Bateman. But that's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of the Ravens. What moves can they do? What can they do that can solidify them a championship over the next at least year or two for sure?
I mean, you're not wrong. He's a great receiver. He is, like you said, number 2, number 3 receiver on that team behind Zay Flowers. And being signed, like you said, 3-year, $39 million, that's a great deal. It's not crazy. It's $13 million a year for a reliable receiver when he's healthy. Granted, the keyword there is healthy because he tends to be injured a lot. He is only on the field, I'd say, what was it? I believe 12 games last year. I mean, he wasn't on there all the time, but when he was out there, he was making good plays. If you're not targeting Zay Flowers, you're finding Rashad Bateman. Granted, there's some Mark Andrews sprinkled in there, but I'm not sure if Ravens fans are the biggest fan of Mark Andrews recently. Just it happened in the Bills game last year. Brutal. But I mean, he's a great receiver. He deserves that money. He's not, like you said, there's no number one. He's not the number 1, especially in the Ravens. But for the cheap deal that he got for a 3-year, almost $40 million contract, it's a great deal. They're not overpaying him at all, and they're paying him for what he's worth. And if he manages to stay healthy for those next 3 years, and maybe can keep improving, maybe we'll sign something bigger. Maybe like another 3-year. Maybe instead of 40, it'll be like a 60, 70, $80 million contract. Who knows? But I think it's a good signing. He's going to be a reliable receiver when he's out there. He doesn't drop a lot. He gets up. He can find open spot. He gets open a lot. He's fast, and whenever if you need him, he's there for you. So I think it was a good signing.
Yeah, that's going to be the big question, of course, is his health. He's really struggled to stay healthy throughout the course of his career with Baltimore. If he can do that, I don't think there's any doubt about how this works out. But it's not too big of an investment. $12 million a year for this guy in Rashad Bateman, who can just be a really solid deep threat for you. He's good for a 40-yard bomb a game, which game-changing plays are huge, and you need to have those kind of lightning bottom moments if you are going to be an elite offense in the NFL nowadays. Having Rashad Bateman for sure helps a lot. But we're going to take a quick break here. Lots of wide receiver news to go over. Raul in the comments here talking a little bit ahead in the future about Shedeur Sanders and the Browns. We have some quarterback news, both him maybe taking that starting spot, and some news around Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson, a new injury. Is his career done? We'll talk about all of that and more coming up next here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, June 5th, if you were just tuning in. We just finished going over some wide receiver news here in the NFL. In this segment, we take a look at some quarterback news. We're going to start off with the Cleveland Browns, as they have one of, if not the most interesting quarterback situation of the entire offseason with the state of that quarterback room and the notoriety of one Shedeur Sanders. He is someone that has looked a little pretty impressive over his stretches at OTAs, at least of what we've seen. We'll talk about whether or not he's got a shot at that starting job. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, June 5th. But like I was saying, we are going to get here into what's going on with Shedeur Sanders and the Browns. This is a very interesting quarterback battle here. Shedeur Sanders, of course, the big quarterback of note, drafted after Dillon Gabriel, a different rookie quarterback here, but still, it's going to be quite the competition. It's not just him that he has to deal with. It's not just the rookies. You have Joe Flacco over there, Super Bowl champion Kenny Pickett as well on that roster. None of those guys really on paper seem to stand out from each other. Of course, big name in Shedeur Sanders. Is that enough for him to get the job? What are the odds, the chances here, Nolan, do you think that he becomes the week one starter? Or where in the depth chart do you think he ends up after the offseason is done?
Yeah, so I actually talked about this on my show when we did the individual shows a few weeks ago. And I had my list was I had Joe Flacco starting week one. Then I had through OTAs, I thought that the Browns would either start who I thought was better, Gabriel or Shedeur at the 2 or 3, the quarterback 2 or 3, and then Kenny Pickett the 4. I just don't see Kenny Pickett just being in contention at all. But I do believe Joe Flacco will be the starter. Obviously, he was there with them 2 seasons ago, and he won them a plethora of games. He won them enough games to where the Browns were still playing competitive football towards the end of the season. And even though they didn't make the playoffs, they were still, like I said, they were still playing good football behind a really good quarterback who no one really saw playing well. He was there for his, just kind of be a vet option, trying to fill in spot. He was just the fill-in quarterback while Deshaun Watson was healing. Deshaun played pretty poorly. They put Joe Flacco back in, and they realized this guy's legit. And then they let him walk, went to the Colts, and now he's back in Cleveland. And that's why I believe he will be the week one starter, just so, they can still let Shedeur or Dillon Gabriel kind of Just kind of feel the ropes, I guess you could say. And then, throughout the season, if Joe Flacco starts to underperform, then they put in either Shedeur or Dylan Gabriel, who they believe will be the better quarterback at the time of those two, which I honestly do believe will be Shedeur. I think he was a better quarterback in college. He wasn't a Heisman contender like Dylan Gabriel was, but if you put Shedeur on that Oregon team, he'd probably be a Heisman contender as well. But I mean, it's going to be either between Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur for the second string position. But I believe Joe Flacco will be the starter by week 1. I think he's just too experienced to not be quarterback 1, at least for the first few weeks, to kind of get those Browns players on their feet.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Nolan. Honestly, I think Joe Flacco will win the starting head coaching job, and I think Shedeur Sanders could fill in as a backup, really. Dylan Gabriel's phenomenal. Obviously, a great quarterback. Came out of Oregon, was there for a while. Was played with Bo Nix while he was there as well. But I think the key factor in this one, I think, is going to come down to Kevin Stefanski. Joe Flacco played with Stefanski when he was with the Browns a couple years ago as well. So I think that gel, that experience working together before, especially with an inexperienced young rookie quarterback group, I think that's how it's going to fall. I think Joe Flacco starts the season, and then however preseason goes, I think it's going to be a preseason battle between the rest of the guys. I think it's going to be either Gabriel or Shedeur. I think Shedeur will get the 2 spot, Gabriel at the 3, and then Kenny Pickett at the 4. Unfortunately, I know Kenny Pickett has a couple years of experience, but just think about Kenny Pickett back in the day with the Steelers. That was just a one-and-done kind of guy, and I think it's just going to be a similar situation with the Browns.
Yeah, it's a very interesting situation. I've heard a couple different conflicting reports. One of them I've heard is it's kind of 2 separate competitions. The starting quarterback battle is between Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, and the backup quarterback battle is between the 2 rookies, and Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. I've also heard that Shedeur Sanders is blowing Dylan Gabriel out of the water at OTAs. It's going to be a very interesting offseason to navigate, not just because of the not clear-cut picture of the 1 through 4 ranking in that quarterback room, but also because of the notoriety of Shedeur Sanders. It makes it really tough to make these non-biased, just strictly football decisions if you have us talking about Shedeur Sanders, even though potentially he's a 4th-string quarterback. He was a 5th-round pick. You got Raul over here in the chat cracking jokes saying the Browns have to retire Shedeur Sanders' number after he fails to make the practice squad, right? This is something that goes deeper than just his performance on the field, his performance in OTAs, in the preseason. There's going to be a lot, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot of outside pressure on the Browns to give this guy reps, get him out there, especially if your veteran Joe Flacco looks like he did last year. It's going to be a real question of not really if, but when Shedeur Sanders gets in there, especially if he looks good in OTAs and the preseason, which it seems like he's doing. How early on to the season, I know, Nolan, you gave a week, but how early on to the season do you think we see Shedeur Sanders? Give me like a earliest and a latest to kind of range situation.
Earliest, I'll say by week 4. I think the earliest we could see Shedeur is week 4. I think they keep Joe Flacco in those first 3 weeks, regardless of the record, to still give Shedeur or Dylan Gabriel, whoever it is, that time to kind of just feel things out and see, if they through like actual practices, when the actual practice, those practices mid-season compared to like preseason are a lot different. There's a lot more contact. There's a lot more work into it. So I think they let those guys work in practice. I think the latest we see him is probably week like 7 or 8. I think they'll let him play at least a game or two. If they're, also depends on the record. If they're fighting for, if they happen to have a good record this year, they had a really good draft. They had a really solid draft, and I think that if they're fighting for a spot in the AFC North for that 1 or 2 seed, I think they'll leave Shedeur out a little longer. But if they're happen to have another poor season, they're only at 2 or 3. They're only at 2 wins by week 7 or 8. I think they start letting Shedeur get some minutes. But even if they have a good record. Let's say they're 5-3 by week 8. I think they let Shedeur play. Let him get in some drives or two. Let him get him in a certain offense. Let's say they need a quarterback option type of offense. You're not going to let Joe Flacco run that. You're going to get Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel in there for a quarterback option, quarterback draw play, and see how they handle the environment there. Which I think so. Earliest I think we see him is week 3/4. Latest week 7 or 8.
Yeah, I'm around the same timetable, honestly, Nolan. Barring an injury to Joe Flacco, which we've seen a couple times over the last few years, he is getting up there with age. Barring an injury, I think the earliest we see him is around week 3. And then the latest, probably, I don't think they plug him in around week 12, week 13. At that point, I think they just let the season ride. But if they start struggling early on, and if they're losing like close games and they're staying competitive in them, I could see them putting in a Shedeur Sanders sometime around week 7, week 8 to give themselves a chance in this year's AFC. I'm not saying that the AFC is weak or anything, but just to give them a chance, give them some experience, let him get out there on the field, and at least either if he has some early season struggles, let them go out or try to work through those issues early on, rather than say next year let them go unaddressed for about a year.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways that this Browns season can go, not just in the quarterback room, but just in general. This is a Browns team that made the playoffs 2 years ago with Joe Flacco, and it's also a Browns team that had the second overall pick in the draft, right? This year with how they performed in a very similar quarterback situation. So there's a lot of different ways that this season could go. It could be last year, it could be 2 years ago, and that could go either with both or either quarterback. I don't think Joe Flacco, like we've been saying, ends up starting the entire season. I do think you guys are right. He breaks camp as the starter. Just having that veteran presence, I don't think they're ready to throw Shedeur Sanders into the fires that is the NFL regular season right away. So he waits a couple weeks, but you go 2 weeks of bad Joe Flacco. You go 2 weeks of real gunslinger Joe Flacco where he has 4 interceptions. It's going to be loud, and I don't think it's going to take too much for Cleveland to make a change in a division like theirs. They have to compete with the Ravens. They have to compete with the Bengals. They have to compete now with Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. It's going to be very, very tough for them to make noise. He could come in anywhere from week 2 really to week 16 maybe. Maybe he just doesn't come in until week 17 if they're really that good in the playoffs. But there is no real timetable for Shedeur Sanders, although if anything goes slightly wrong, he's coming in at the first sign of trouble, because I don't think that the Browns, I think Jimmy Haslam had made them pick him, the owner, and he's going to come in and say, hey, things aren't going good. Bring Shedeur Sanders into the football game. Make him be our quarterback. But yeah. Good.
Oh, I was saying, yeah. I mean, I still don't believe Joe Flacco will play bad. He has a better receiving room now than he did 2 years ago with that Browns team. You got, obviously, your receiver one, Jerry Jeudy, but still, I think, I still think he will get in minutes between. I think he will get. Yeah, I know you said between week 2 and 16. I think it's more between week 3 and 8. I think he will get minutes between that time. Whether it just be like a small play, like kind of the Commanders, how they use Marcus Mariota. I think they can use that sort of thing with the Browns with Shedeur. But you're not wrong. If Joe Flacco's playing well, you probably won't see the field until week 12, 13, 14. But like you said, if they can see him slowing down, he's getting pretty old. I know he's in his 40s. So I mean, if he takes a big hit or two, he might be down a little longer. It's time for Shedeur to step up and he's a 5th round pick, but hey, he's one of the best quarterbacks. He was, in my opinion, I think he was the best quarterback in college football this year, or one of them, behind Cam Ward. So him being a 5th round pick is still surprising to me. But I mean, if they need him to, I think he'll be able to step up and make some big time plays if needed.
Yeah, absolutely. But he's not the only quarterback that has his fair share of competition this offseason. Indianapolis has their own interesting quarterback dynamic to figure out between Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. Anthony Richardson goes down with a shoulder injury, is not currently there. The same shoulder he had to have surgery on his rookie season. He is really on thin ice right now. We'll talk about how this is going to affect him, if he's really ever going to get another shot in his career, if he can't be healthy to start out this season. We'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus, today joined by my two friends and co-hosts, Nolan and Mehrob. If you're just tuning in, we've talked about a whole lot of stuff. Where have you been this whole time? We are now going to go into a little bit more on our quarterback talk. We have some news coming out of Indianapolis. Lots of stuff going on in the world of Indianapolis sports. An NBA Finals game right now about to near halftime. But some quarterback news as well, and not the greatest. Anthony Richardson has been one of the more intriguing quarterbacks to me for a very, very long time. Really, ever since he burst onto the scene in Florida, he is one of those big what-if scenarios you see a lot of times in sports, but he's running out of chances, and he's running out of chances quickly. It came out today that he has a shoulder injury, an injury in the exact same shoulder that he had to have surgery on that ended his rookie season. Daniel Jones waiting in the wing as a backup plan, and that might not sound like ooh, thank God for Colts fans, but Daniel Jones is a guy that you get him behind an offensive line for the first time in his career, and I think he could be something. I don't think he's a complete bust. I think he wasn't great, and he definitely wasn't worth $40 million, but you get him behind an offensive line like Indy's, you get him weapons like Indy has on the outside, and with Jonathan Taylor, there's a chance that Anthony Richardson, if he's not healthy for week 1, never sees his job again. What does this season look like as a last resort for Anthony Richardson, and is he going to be ready for it, do you think?
I really think this could be the end of the line for Anthony Richardson if he's not able to come back into the regular season. Unfortunately, this is one of those situations that he might not ever get his job back, especially if Daniel Jones goes out there and plays the way that we've seen him do before. This is the same Daniel Jones that brought the New York Giants to the playoffs just, 2 or 3 years ago. So, and especially with the running game, the offensive line that you pointed out, Jeremy, there are a lot of key pieces that this Indiana Colts team has that they can work around. They have good defense. They have a great group of guys and an exceptional head coach. So they have the assets to make some noise in the AFC. They have the assets to. Daniel Jones is in a perfect situation where he can just show up and be like, the Colts are looking at Daniel Jones and just saying, show up, be a game manager, manage the game, don't throw bad picks, which is an issue for Daniel Jones sometimes. But when he's not playing hero ball like he was in New York, when you give him an offensive line, give him chances, give him time in the pocket, sometimes he's mobile as well in the pocket sometimes. There will be flashes that Daniel Jones can show that possibly might not give Anthony Richardson his job back, unfortunately. That's just the state of the NFL these days.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. I just thought it was kind of funny. He said Daniel Jones is kind of mobile. Every time I saw Daniel Jones, it just ended up something funny. Him fall that 60-yard run he had. I mean, that's the first thing that came to my mind. But I mean, he's in a great spot. You know, he obviously in New York, he had really nothing. He had Saquon, but he had no O line. He had very little D line, and he had just no defense. There was really nothing going on for there in New York. Sorry, Jeremy. I know that kind of hurts to say, but that's just the truth. But I mean, now he's in a great spot. He has Indianapolis. You know, they weren't the best record last year, but now he has obviously a better O-line than they had in New York. He has a great tight end in Tyler Warren, who they just drafted. He's going to be a game changer for them. He is probably going to be their best offensive weapon, maybe besides Jonathan Taylor. But I mean, that's going to be hit or miss with Jonathan Taylor because he's getting pretty old. He's getting more injury prone as well. So we'll have to wait and see with that. But I mean, Tyler Warren's going to be a huge asset. If they honestly could use Tyler Warren like the Raiders use Brock Bowers. Honestly, he's their number one receiver because that's exactly how I can see them using it. That's what the Raiders did. It worked out for them. They're in the same situation. Both teams are decent on the offensive side of the ball, decent O lines, great tight ends. So to suit the same scheme, they could be fine. But Anthony Richardson, I think if he doesn't manage to get a single rep in, if he doesn't play a single game this year because of injury, I think he should medically retire. It sucks to say because of how flashy of a player he is. I loved watching him at Florida. He was regarded as honestly one of the best QBs in this draft. And he got drafted, I believe it was like first round too. And seeing him, like your first round draft pick have to medically retire only after 2 seasons, that obviously stinks for not only the player but for the team as well because of how fun he is to watch. I mean, last year when he was healthy for those few games there, he was making great plays. Great, he's a huge arm too. It's not really he's not the best, most accurate arm in the world, but boy can he throw that thing. If you saw his pro day, he had like a 70-yard bomb to one of his receivers. I mean, seeing a talent like an arm talent like that is awesome. But it's always like seeing these great players with great talents having to call it quits early, injuries, personal stuff, whatever, and just seeing him having to possibly have to retire, which I think is the right thing to do. If he can't play this year, he should retire because you don't want to hurt yourself any more than you already are. Your shoulder, your leg, whatever it's going to be with him. I know. I mean, it just sucks because he's just so athletic, and he was compared to like Lamar Jackson. I saw people compare him to Lamar Jackson, and seeing that comparison and see how he is now, it sucks. But medically retiring is the best thing for him to do, even though he is fun to watch, which sucks, but that's football, I guess.
Lamar Jackson, the next Cam Newton, I think, is a more apt comparison for him with his size, speed, and just his incredible arm talent. That's all the positives about him, though. The accuracy, of course, is the big thing. I assume we're all in agreement here that this is his last chance, which sucks to say for a guy that I am still incredibly high on just with his raw skill set. But this shoulder injury is something to keep an eye on. Again, it's on the same shoulder that he had surgery on before. He is supposedly doing fine right now, but it's going to be really tough if he doesn't get healthy for the start of the season. There's a real chance he gets Wally pipped here, and he never gets a chance to start in the NFL again. Which, again, he's barely even started a full season because of injuries. So you can always make the argument that he just needs more time, but there comes a certain point where you're a team like the Colts in a division truly as wide open as the AFC South is. If you're trying to be competitive, you just have to go. You have to make that decision, and you have to figure out when it's time to move on from a talent that's just not working for you. And that feels like where Anthony Richardson sits right now. How many more chances would you give him? And this year truly is the last one from what I can tell. Yeah.
It really feels like it. It feels like he's had too many injuries. Last year was his leg. 2 years ago was his shoulder. He re-injures the same shoulder. Think about it the same way that Derek Carr just retired at a young age, just barely turning 32 years of age with Derek Carr. When injuries like this happen, especially a shoulder, especially a knee, these are joints that are just easily re-injured. And it's unfortunate to see with a player like Anthony Richardson. He'd never really had a good O-line in Indianapolis when he first started. That was a big reason why he took a bunch of big hits early on in his career. and he's just paying the price for it right now. It's unfortunate to see a guy with the level of talent when he entered the NFL. When we were talking about him like a Mike Vick, like a Lamar Jackson, a guy with a bunch of skill sets, a good arm, could run the ball, just tall, big. It's just unfortunate to see. So it's unfortunate. First, the Colts got to deal with Andrew Luck. And now they got to deal with Anthony Richardson. Both of these guys could be retiring really early on.
Really interesting to see exactly what happens with one Anthony Richardson. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it, though. Let me know in the comments. Do you think Anthony Richardson can still return to form, or is he just done? A bust in the NFL for one of the more intriguing prospects in a very long time. We're taking a quick break, though. When we come back, we finish off our show talking a little bit of hockey. Game 1 was incredible last night. We saw Edmonton take care of business in overtime. Yet another crazy comeback for those comeback kids over there in Northwest Canada. They take game 1, really what felt like a must-win for them to hold on to home ice advantage. We'll talk about that one coming up next here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, June 5th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over lots of quarterback situations in Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson, in Cleveland with their four-headed quarterback monster, including Shedeur Sanders and Joe Flacco. In this segment, we finish off our show talking just a little bit of hockey for you at the end of the night. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals is in the books, an overtime thriller, something that we never saw in the first series where these two teams met up last year. This one goes to overtime in favor of the Oilers. We'll talk about that in a second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, June 5th. But like I was saying, we are going to now get into a little bit of the world of hockey. We saw our first overtime game between the Panthers and the Oilers last night. Excuse me, I went to the wrong scene. Apologize. But these two teams lived up to exactly what we expected them to. Florida came out strong and fast in those early periods. Scoring was opened up just 66 seconds into the game by one Leon Draisaitl, who would eventually be the hero of the game. The Oilers, he has a second goal in overtime. Connor McDavid was just not allowed to do anything. He ends up with a couple of helpers over there, including the game-winning pass right to the stick in the slot. Power plays are going to kill you. That's just what happens when you do a crazy delay of game, a bad delay of game. You cannot have that happen when you are trying to win a cup. But the first 2 periods looks like the Panthers were going to pull ahead. They ended up taking a 3-1 lead very early on in that third period after 2 very, very strong periods. But then an answer back from Victor Arvidsson to make it 3-2 early on in that third period. It was all Oilers from there. You had another goal to ending up to tie it over there past Sergei Bobrovsky, Connor McDavid being able to get that by getting behind the net, not going through the teeth of the defense like he usually does, even though his stick handling is incredible. You saw Stuart Skinner step up huge in that one, especially after the second period. He ended up only allowing 3 goals on around 34 shots faced. He was just really good, a shutdown player for the entirety of overtime and the third period, but it just felt like Florida ran out of gas against a very fast Oilers team. If it's going to be like that, it's going to be really tough for the Oilers, for the Panthers to come back and win this series. What were your takeaways from this game, Mehrob?
This game, I think you hit the nail on the head. It felt like the Oilers offense finally got the best of the Panthers defense. And when you look at the Stanley Cup Finals of last year, the biggest thing that we pointed out time and time again, the Panthers defense would find a way time and time again. Both the defense and Bobrovsky would make big saves time and time again and would find a way to pull out the game. Give their offense time to find their legs and get a game-winning goal. That's what it felt like time and time again. And in this game, even late in that game, you brought up Stuart Skinner, the way he was standing on his head late in that game. Sergei Bobrovsky made some crazy saves late in that game, especially overtime. A couple 1v1 saves with him and the offensive player coming down straight down the pipe. It was Sergei Bobrovsky was playing phenomenal down, especially late in that game. But the crucial part of this one came in the last 5 minutes of the game. That delay game penalty, you cannot have a delay game penalty in that situation. Just a simple put the puck over the boards. It looks like a simple play, but a simple play like that is what killed the game. It gave the Oilers a man up, a simple, easy advantage, and those are those tiny gaps that change games. And this is now a 1-0 series lead for the Oilers going into Game 2. When I think about the Panthers, I think about they have a lot of tired bodies, older bodies on that team. They just bring in Brad Marchand mid-season trade with the Bruins. Marchand did score a goal early on in the game, and the Panthers got off to an early start, but especially when a game goes into overtime like that, you can't expect these guys to go for 40, 50 minutes of ice time and be okay at the ages that they are now. So props to Draisaitl and the Oilers. They came out with a big win, but it's tough for the Panthers if they want to have any sort of a comeback in this series.
Yeah, you talk about age, you talk about just the amount of wear and tear and the amount of hockey that these Panthers have played the last couple seasons. This is now 3 straight years they're playing into June. That is so incredibly tough to do in a sport like hockey where you're just being punished every time you're out there on the ice. It's incredibly impressive that they were able to dominate that long, but any game that goes to overtime, as we saw, the longer these games go on, the harder it is for the Panthers to keep the intensity up right now. I think they're just a little tired, and I'm a little worried about how deep this series is going to be able to go. If these games continue to go like this, where they can only really sustain themselves for 2 periods, regardless of how good those 2 periods are, with the opportunistic offense and the speed and passing that Connor McDavid and that offense have on the Oilers, it's just going to be too much for Sergei Bobrovsky to hold back. And it's looking like, again, it's not going to be too long of a series. But that's just if everything goes the way it did in Game 1. The Oilers 1 step closer to bringing the cup back home to Canada for the first time in over 30 years. Should be a really good series, and I cannot wait to see how it goes. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of the GSMC Sports Podcasts. We have been your hosts, Jeremy Lapidus, Mehrob, and Nolan. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for joining us. We will be back tomorrow. I believe it's a full house tomorrow as well. talking everything from game 1 of the NBA Finals. Right now, 59-47 at halftime in favor of the Thunder. 19 turnovers forced in that first half. That's going to kill you. If you're the Pacers, you need to take care of the ball. That's the key in this series. But we'll talk more about that tomorrow. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn ain't